Welcome, everybody. We're here tonight with the Fire Board. And this is a budget meeting. And that is all we will be dealing with tonight is strictly reviewing the budget. And we'll be looking at the Fire Board accepting it and moving it on to council for their approval. So this meeting will be streamed live and recorded for public viewing on the town's YouTube page using the following link: www.youtube.com/@town-of-Plympton-Wyoming/streams. If anybody here tonight has a pecuniary interest, you can declare it either now, ahead of the meeting, or anytime during the meeting. So item number 3 on the agenda here, of course, is the proposed budget. We just look here. In order to get the budget on the table and talk about it, it was moved by Mr. Gariakis and second by Christian. The Fire Exec Committee receives 2024 Plympton-Wyoming Fire and Emergency Services budget from Eric Campbell, Director of Fire and Emergency Services / Fire Chief, and provides preliminary approvals for the 2024 budget, the 2024 budget proposal to council. So what I'm proposing tonight, and if you would like to change this agenda in any which way, you can speak up now. I propose we're going to go through this line by line, but we'll try to move through it fairly quickly. If there is no issues on a page or whatever, you can just say I have no issues and we'll move to the next page to save time. Yes.
I did notice that, and I had almost no time to look at this, but from last year's line items to this year's line items, some line items have been incorporated together in one line item and some have disappeared. So I just kind of want to understand the reasoning, like, and I guess I don't know how to address that as we're going line by line. I don't know why some of these lines were removed.
Absolutely, through the chair. Some of the items were listed multiple times. For example, pagers. We had pagers in 2 different spots, so I just amalgamated them into one spot.
Okay, so like, for example, the workers' comp and EHT, I noticed last year there was no EHT. I don't know how it works here. I don't know, private corporation, how it works. So your wages would have to be over $1 million before you're paying ST or EHT, sorry. So it's hard to know whether some of those amounts are for workers' compensation or whether they're for employees' health tax. And I don't know that we've ever historically ever paid any, but in the future that may.
So this is the only budget we have that we break down to every single little purchase. This is your traditional, that's referred to as line by line budget. It's highly encouraged, and our staff have done so with all of our other budgets, to go by activity or by section to avoid budgeting every little expense. Because when you budget every little expense, you're prone to fluctuations and you're prone to inefficiencies because you're having to look at every little expense. You should be looking at your priorities as a whole, your line items as a whole item, not necessarily budgeting for every single small payment, because that does cost a lot of time for our staff to allocate all those. And it does take a lot more time to track all those. Whereas if you compress it, it provides our firefighters and our staff a lot more flexibility and time and ability to work with these budgets.
And while I appreciate what you're saying, if we saw a large fluctuation in one of your next categories, we would obviously have general ledger entries that would be specific. They don't go away.
They don't, they're there.
That you would be able to then answer those questions readily.
Generally speaking, we may have to take some time to go back to the computer and pull it out. but yes, we can pay like in those accounts each year. And typically at year end, when we present the year end budget, if council does have questions about certain line items, we can pull that information and provide it at a later meeting. And I think we've done so in the past.
And also saying that if I believe the last budget. I have to go back to my notes. I'm not gonna turn back that many pages, but there was a lot of duplication. Of my understanding in this budget, some duplication. And when it was brought together, both Kamlaki and Wyoming, some of that stuff got carried over and was kind of duplicated. So now that it was put together as one budget, I think some of that, I know some of that stuff got removed. There was stuff in there that would have zeros right across. I believe that's all been, basically, it might be some of it still. Yeah, there's some of it still there.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman, we are working on it.
Yeah.
And in all fairness, I'm just coming here, trying to sort through all that, but there is quite a bit there that was overlapped. And in some areas, there's areas where I've zeroed it because it's an item that it doesn't relate to something that we would require for our enabling bylaw, the rules that govern us. Right? For example, they had life safety rope on there, an annual budget of $2,500. Well, we don't have a requirement for life safety rope at that extent. Right? We are not doing any type of rescue that will require us to have life safety rope. So I've removed that or incorporated it in some area, another area of the budget.
All right, so as we go through this, Christian, for your benefit, if in fact there is something on there that you don't like. You think it has been combined a little bit too much or compressed a little, feel free to single it out and you know, if there's something we don't know, we want to know, especially if it's a bigger expense, for sure.
It's probably in a meeting actually.
But, you know, an example of some of that stuff I talked about zero, you know, you got fire prevention officer salary. Well, you're now our fire prevention officer and I'm hoping we're not going to pay you more. But you know, so that one could have come off.
Mr. Chair, I wouldn't object if you wanted to be.
Anyways, so just one other thing I'll mention before we get going here for everybody. If you take a look at the 2023 actuals, that is only up to September the 30th. So if you look down that line that's highlighted in yellow there, September the 30th, obviously, maybe some of the bills haven't been paid. So keep that in mind. Okay, we're ready to go. Any more lead-in questions or no? Okay, yes,
Sorry.
sure.
When you have money in an account that hasn't been spent. What happens to those overages or the balance left?
Through the chair, if I may, one of the things that we can do is we can realloc those lines to other areas where we need it. But for the most part, it will probably end up in reserves. The reality here is that we don't fully know. There's some other things at play right now that we don't fully know where we're gonna be sitting at the end of this budget year. We've found some things as I move forward with my role that need to be worked on. So, and we can discuss those more as we get to those line items, but that might answer those questions.
Okay.
Do operating surpluses go back into the general and then capital goes into where?
So at the end of the budget, at the end of the year, if there's a surplus, then it goes to the fire reserve. If there's a deficit, it comes from the fire reserve. So it doesn't affect the big budget. The budget is still what council has approved.
Right, so you don't use those reserves to offset the budget. It doesn't get incorporated into the calculations.
But if they have a surplus, then it goes
Yeah.
to them and they can bring it back next year.
And we'll see that at the end of the last page, we'll see surplus money. 23. Good question. The question I ask almost at every budget. Hope you ain't taking it into general.
Okay.
We just asked it at the cemetery too, so. Okay, all right, so looking at the first page here. Anything on that page that anybody would like to talk about? Delete, add to, or whatever you'd like. And I do apologize to the committee. This budget wasn't out a lot in advance. So didn't have a whole lot of time to review it, so take your, I'm not knocking anybody, just the way it worked out.
Mr. Chair, I was just waiting for a few, with some things had popped up at the last minute that I didn't count on. So I was waiting for a few estimates, so I do apologize that it was a little late getting it to you.
So, but we got the opportunity tonight, take your time and here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, question on the third section down, the title, Fire Chief, Station Chief, Deputy Station Chief salary. Those would be the salaries of Self Chief and the DCs.
That's correct, sir. And if I may, I probably, there isn't a bit of an increase there. But we have proposed, and this will be followed up at the next fire, the normal, our standard meeting. But adding an additional chief, paid on call chief position. Specific in relation to training, and that is incorporated into that.
I'm sorry, what line item were you referring to?
That would be the third section down. Says Fire Chief, Station Chief, Deputy Station Chief salary.
Mhm, thank you.
That includes salary and benefits.
And benefits as well.
Okay,
It's,
I don't see an increase though.
no, I don't either.
Well, and if I may, there's been some fluctuations with my salaries as well, so in my predecessor's salary, so that kind of offset the increase. You won't see a great deal of an increase, it's only a couple $1,000. It's marginal at best, but in case you were wondering, that's why that is there.
Okay, so just to dwell on that, 2023 budget was on that particular line item was $164,300.
Oh, my bad, sorry, I'm looking at the actual spent, Mr. Chair. My
Oh, okay, yeah, because you're only 2024 budget, you're down to 150,000, which is, $14,300 lower.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and that is the offset of the difference in the salaries of myself.
Fair enough.
I consulted with the treasurer on that, to make sure I was not off at all. In fact, she figured it out for me.
Okay,
So with that line, then bear in mind is that because we have budgeted for the salary as it is, not for the salary as it is at its max. Your next budget, you'll see a jump again because you're going to be acquainting for not only cost of living, but you're going to be acquainting for a potential step increase.
Yep.
So that would make that go up.
yep, no issue.
It's a next year problem, but I just wanted to make sure the council's aware of that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
line item 1, under the firefighter benefits, the FIS insurance. So I see, the last 2 years, it was over budgeted. The actuals, well, of course, this year, and at the end of the year, but it seems to be, I don't know why we're over budgeting.
Well, VIS, Volunteer Firefighters Insurance, the system that we get essentially, we pay per firefighter and there's a formula for that. And don't ask me what it is, because I have no idea. But we just denoted that because it's an insurance, there will be an increase. The potential there is that it may end up being, again, an item that we end up going into surplus, but we have to pay for the potential of what that cost is going to be. And we may not know what that full payment is until the end of the year anyways. So I can't speak to the fact that we're seeing an increase there, other than the fact that the insurance, all the insurances, you're going to see about a 10% increase, but done that across the board. And I've never really worked with the VFIS system before, so from what I'm gathering and understand, it's a reflection of the number of firefighters we have and we pay per firefighter. Is that correct, Scott?
Yeah, back in 2020, as you know, our department took a big hit and everything else. Our numbers are down. And with the IFS, we have to submit all the names that in January, and we cannot add them through the year. So there's times that might have been down that our complement of firefighters was coming up, but we couldn't get them to the next year. That going into 2024, we're going to have a full complement again. of 60 firefighters, so. But we're,
We essentially are planning for our numbers to be where they should be. Thank you, DC.
So remember now, these numbers now are combined for both departments, so. In that red line, these are for both departments.
Yeah, I was just comparing year over year.
Yep.
And I just see it's always over budgeted, but. Yeah. Yeah, well, I would like to just I do have other questions, but under. The administrative assistant. Can we remove the word secretary, please? That's all I have to say on that.
Where are you? Sorry. What section?
Oh, I'm sorry, we're administrative assistant. The line under the title.
Oh, okay.
It will be done.
Yes, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving down to the section 5 under heading of officer salary, we're showing some salary for captains. Does that also include the lieutenants as well?
yes.
Thank you.
Anything else, Gary? No?
No, I have nothing on that page.
Kristen, anything else on that page? Yes. Okay, go right ahead.
Fire calls.
Fire calls.
I feel like it's under budgeted. Looking at the previous.
Absolutely, but if you also look at the previous, we've had we've had fluctuations there as well. If you look at 2021, it was all the way up to $114,000. This year, we're sitting at what we've actually used at around $60,000. So unless we get a very large amount of fire calls between now and the end of the year, that will not increase. So I found a happy medium as to where we should be in theory, and that's why I presented that number. There's no way to truly budget how many calls we're gonna get a year. It's a best guess at best. And if you look at 2001 and some of the weather conditions and some of the other things that they had going on, that would explain some of those increases in calls. Sorry, 2021.
Yes, and in 2022, it was over 100,000 as
Yeah.
well. And of course, we're being told it's going to the end of September, but I didn't know that's an actual number. And I don't know if there's any.
No, and it's gonna fluctuate from year to year. I mean, one year we could budget $100,000 for it and we end up spending 140. It's hard to say. It really is a reflection on so many factors that get us those calls, right? So it's based upon what we end up getting.
Well, it's nice that we are down.
Well, it is, but at the end of the day, it's a best guess at best.
And to add to that too, that from 2019 to 2022, that we short one truck. So that both stations were getting called out basically for every call.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Once we got the new trucks in, the number of calls. We're still getting the same number of calls, but not both stations will get called out for everything, so.
I was just trying to make sure you have enough money.
Okay. Anything else, Kristen?
No, I don't. So, no.
The just self will just comment, third box down there, the executive meetings, CEMC meetings. Obviously our new, are we, I guess my question there is CEMC. Who's paying his salary, the fire department or the? Because. In fact,
one and the same, but the CEMC wages will come out of the CAMC budget. However, the fire chief, director of public works, treasurer, everyone on senior management are expected to attend CEMC meetings. And that is paid for through their general wages. So that's why you saw that removed. In an emergency situation, if our CEMC is unavailable, then Chief Campbell is one of our backups and may have to act, but there's not a specific salary for that. It's just part of the chief's duties to act as that backup.
So you'll be budgeting for the CEMC for both. There'll be a council.
There is a separate budget under CEMC.
Thank you.
Where did
I was looking at the third box down on the fire chief, station chief, deputy chief, and then executive meeting / CEMC. Executive meeting / CMC meetings, the budget is $624. 2020.
It'd be more for the CEMC, not the
Yeah.
it'd be more for the executive. The CEMC.
I wrote all my notes on off the thing and it's not printing the same way as this big sheet, so I'm gonna be a little lost.
So you looking for that one? Or
Yeah, I'm good.
you're good?
Yes.
Okay. Have any other questions on that page, Kristen? No. Okay, anybody else have any more questions on that first page?
Oh, we went first.
What's that? No?
No, I did.
Okay. Okay, so that. Page, we're good. Over to page number 3. Okay. Any questions?
Page 2, Mr. Chair, okay, I'm sorry, it slipped there, 3. I said 3, I'm sorry.
Oh. I did 3, page 3 of 19. Okay, bottom left there, yes. Okay, any questions on that page? Anything on there you'd like to talk about?
This is the all the memberships and stuff.
It is page 3 of. Your numbered, your page?
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
yeah, 3 of 19, yeah.
So just for food for thought for future budgets, this is typically one line under our overall system, which would just be one line memberships. And then we would have a budget in those memberships. Not for all memberships, not broken out to every individual.
Which I know there's always been several questions on all these memberships and whether they're really required or not. So it is kind of nice to have it on here. So that we know, I know you can put $2,000 membership, but I think this is where I agree with Christian's point here, like. I think we've got to be careful, we just don't generalize it too much, because that's our job is to question, like, what are we spending money on? And this. You look down here, we do the same with council.
That is fair, but you do also get your payables every month, which would list each membership as you receive it.
Yeah, we don't.
They're looking at a budget.
Yeah. So anyways, that's just my comments. I don't have a problem with this page. It's not a big page, but it certainly lets us know what all these membership dues and whether they're required or not. Like you say, we can request that at any meeting, at any time. Go ahead.
So are a lot of these are every other year type?
Well, to be honest, some of them, we've budgeted for, and then, like, for example, there's some of them here, if through the sheriff's, right, if you look that we've never ever paid. Right, so I'm not going to waste everybody's time by putting the amount in there that we have paid. And I'd actually noticed one here that that slipped through my fingers, and that was the Lambton Fire Chiefs Association. Again, we haven't paid that out when it comes to membership dues, but we have paid out for meetings, so that was supposed to be shifted down one line. I apologize for that. But with regards to the rest of them,
That says Bill.
if you do look at the the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, it's an invaluable resource. I spent 2 hours on a conference call today. It's a very, very important aspect of what I do and what these two fine gentlemen do as well. Because it keeps us current. The Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs as well. I actually sit on a number of committees with the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, and I would like to continue that. So those are the main ones that you're gonna see there. And again, I just went through and I said, as I did with a few of these items, and I just said, are we spending money on it? If not, we're gonna move on to leaving it there. We haven't spent it in the last couple of years. So,
So what do you mean by that? Like, are free memberships or you just don't belong to them?
well, it's gonna be 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Some of them might be that we don't belong to them. Some of them we've just never been charged for the membership, or some of them have been put into another line item and for some reason or another. But at the way we're seeing it right now, I can only go with what I had in the past on the numbers. So I just said, you know what, we haven't paid into this association for the last 5 years. I'm not gonna budget for it this year. If it pops up, then I'll get we'll have to pull the money from something else. But it's just, it's one of those things, right? Where I'm not gonna go and repeat putting something into the budget that we've never ever paid out. Seems kind of frivolous.
I know that too for that, that mutual aid, that fire chiefs and that county prevention. And their Chief Goodhill that, usually sends a bill out here. That he's got a lot of things, but sometimes getting the bills out is a little tougher, but he'll send one bill for those 3 associations to us. And in the past, like I've usually broken them down into each line, but I'm pretty sure I haven't seen one yet this year, so there could still be one coming for those 3 associations.
I don't think we're questioning what you choose to belong here. Just if it's every year we question the same things. So I've been on this side of the work for many years, and if it's legit, we'll be it. So any other questions on here?
No, sir.
No, carry on. Number 4, page number 4, fire prevention. Anybody got any issues on that page? Under fire prevention, all this routine inspections, is this going to be the inspections chief that you're gonna be doing? Is this what
That
that is?
is part of my contract, yes, is
Yeah.
those inspections. That's why you're gonna see zeros across the board on that section.
Yeah, they got $65 on here.
I can't speak to as why that is, but I do know that. That was obviously on there prior to me coming into the picture, but that is something that would normally be incorporated into my contract, sir.
So,
I don't know why it's there either, so
pardon me.
I don't know why it was there, that unless it just key their wrong line item got put in.
It doesn't really matter because it's not on 2024 budget. So, okay. Kristen, you got any questions on this page?
Are we still on page 3 or are we on page 4?
No, we're on page 4.
Okay. Thank you.
He's thinking about it. Gary, do you have any questions on page 4?
No, I don't, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so, material registration had zeros right across the board and now we have 7,800.
Where are you looking at?
First responder medical training.
I don't. Oh, we're not on that. Are we done with 4? I'm sorry. I thought we were still on it.
Mr. Chair, I think with page 4 at the bottom of the agenda is the entire agenda, including the first page.
The page 4, there's page 3 of the.
Page 3 of the,
That's what. That's what's good.
that's where it's getting confused too.
Okay, sorry.
Well, 19, but page 3 of the budget.
So pay will stay by pages of the agenda that are marked.
Page
Oh,
3, what
I'm
you're
looking-
saying is page 4.
Yeah.
That's agenda.
Okay.
So it's confusing everybody.
Sorry, page 3
All right. On the same page.
of the budget. Yeah,
It's in the.
I'm looking down here to the left.
There is not page numbers on every one of these budgets.
Oh,
I know.
So maybe we should just go by the agenda page number to avoid confusion.
So I was right off the bat. Okay, bottom left corner. That's the number we're going.
Down
So
here.
which one are you on?
by. Is that what you're suggesting?
I would, because your next page doesn't have a page number on it, so
Oh.
you get deep in it again, so.
Oh, it's 2 pages really.
All right, we'll get, all right.
Under fire prevention stuff.
That's correct.
We just started. Yeah, okay.
All right, so fire prevention. No question. No question.
No questions? I don't have any. Excuse me. Question. Okay, so bottom left corner, 5. On the same page, so to speak. Okay, fire training programs.
Okay. So can I ask that question now?
Absolutely, and through the chair, I can answer that unequivocally.
Okay.
So currently, we don't necessarily subscribe to a particular standard when it comes to medical restraint. So as part of moving forward with tightening up that end of the enabling bylaw as well, we are going to go with a medical first responder standard, which incorporates our ability to not only provide first aid and oxygen therapy, but also with the ability to assist during auto extrication and boarding, collaring, and doing other items with patients. In the past, they've just done a sign off on it. I would prefer that we use Red Cross, get them to do it and foster that liability of third party. So, and it's about $650 a person, but it's only every 3 years. We budgeted for X amount to go this year, and then we'll continue down that way until we get everybody qualified. And part of that as well is so that we're not requalifying everybody in a lump sum. We're doing it in an effect so that we're trying to keep our costs steady throughout the budget year. So, I'm sorry, through our budgets year by year. So that particular module is about $650 a person. And that's why you're seeing that dramatic spike and zeros in a number of other areas, because that will compensate for first aid training and those other areas.
So that'll be stable then if you're doing rotating for a 3-year period and it's 3-year expiry. So it will be stable on the budget going forward. So
Absolutely. It'll be a cost that is going to be probably continued. It may fluctuate a few $100s here and there, depending on, of course, the costs going up and the provider that we can get, right? Because most of these organizations are subcontractors of the Red Cross. They're authorized to instruct and issue certificates on behalf of the Red Cross, but we still end up using a subcontractor provider, if you will. So there could be fluctuations.
That's it, Christian?
I don't know.
And Gary, do you have anything while we're?
Chair, thank you.
Okay, I'll just jump down to seminars, to the Ontario Association Fire Chiefs Conference midterm. Is that just for Chief Eric or do the district chiefs, can they go to that too, or is that strictly for these?
If I may, Chair, Mr. Chair, I budgeted it so that if one of the district chiefs so chooses to go, he may. And that goes with both conferences. There is a conference in the spring, which there's a trade show and all that great stuff in a couple days. And then there's with the AGM, which I'm attending in November, which of course they can attend as well. Only one, of course, because we need somebody back here to look after things. So, but certainly that's what my outlook on it was. And I got an approximate cost of those conventions and there we go.
Yeah, that's exactly the reason I'm asking the question, to make sure you're covered for if 1 or 2 do go. Okay. There's like $500 in food. How many days is that? Is that just one?
The one in the May timeframe, the actual conference portion is only a couple days. The AGM is about 5 days and it depends what you wish to attend. This year, I'm only attending 4 out of the 5 days because there's a portion that doesn't really affect us as we don't deal with career firefighters.
Kirsten, you found something?
You answered the one.
Sorry, I
One.
interrupted you.
No, that's fine. No.
No, okay.
I guess the line item we might be behind maybe in the health and safety.
If I may, through the chair, I have to get recertified. Mine has expired, so that's gonna be part of that cost. And then we're going to have, the likelihood of one of our, either our new position, we have to calculate that he might likely have to do that training as well. So we've got to kind of keep that in mind. Plus, there's costs. We have no, like, I just want to make sure that we haven't paid ourselves in the corner to make sure that everybody who's supposed to be certified is certified. When they're members of the committee from our end of things.
Anybody else have any questions on that page? Okay, we're gonna flip it over there to page 6. Hey, Kristen, you're on first this time.
I got this budget. 4:30. I had no time. So if you give me a couple of minutes.
Here, I'll give you.
We did send it out a few days ago, did we not?
Yes, I got it at 4:30 on Tuesday.
Okay.
I worked. At a council meeting.
Yep.
I had Sacred Conservation Authority this morning and now I'm sitting at a budget. So I haven't had a lot.
Okay, giving you a couple of critical incident team. What are we doing there? This PTSD,
So
it's was a extremely huge issue here.
So we've reduced the costs there, and the only reason I've done that is because we haven't had to use it. If we do have to use it, we will end up having to go over, but the reality here is that it's one of those costs where, again, will we have to use it? And that is part of the AP, right? The portion of that, yeah, so that aspect of it, we just reduced the cost. I took that on myself, so if I'm wrong, by all means, we can increase it again, but from what I've seen and what we've been using, I went with that. And if we do need to go back and increase it, I've got room to move something around, I'm sure.
Here's comments from the district chiefs on that. That was a huge issue.
Sure, so this is more so for the Plympton County Critical Incident Stress Management Team, that they will come out. So yeah, so over the last couple of years, we haven't had a significant call where we've needed them to come out to provide support to the firefighters after a traumatic call.
So this is not what we talked about in the working document where.
Yes, we do. We went through that last year, or the year before, with training firefighters in-house. So we do have a team there's members throughout the county from fire departments that can come and provide kind of additional support through that.
It's one of those, again, it's like fire calls, right? Hopefully we don't need it, but if we need it, we have to have something behind it for it.
Boy, I agree with that.
You feel that's enough.
I mean, honestly, it would depend, there's so many factors, again, that cost it could end up being $900, or depending on the incident and what's going on, it could be 5,000. I can't speak to that, right, so.
Everything else on your list?
The registration contract trainers. See big fluctuations there. Significantly reduced it. Not sure the reason.
Again, it reflects what we've been using in reality. We've got we're very fortunate. We do have a couple members of our department that are currently also instructors at the Lambton College, so there's certain aspects of that we've been able to kind of, save some money. So that's a reflection of what we've actually used in the past.
Very good.
Okay, that's it. Any other question? Okay, page 7. Fire hall operating expenses. Insurance, kind of a fixed cost. We don't have a lot of control over that. Any questions on that page? computer software, are you gonna be making any major changes there? Oh, sorry, Gary, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a clarity through you to the chief. This expenses, these are for both halls.
That is my understanding, sir. Yes, that is the case, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Computer software, you making any,
So actually, I spent an hour and a bit on a teleconference today or a conference call today and as well as yesterday. We've got to pay a little bit of money to get, so what's happening is the Fire Pro program that we're currently using, certain portions of that are able to be web-based, certain portions are not. And unfortunately, speaking directly with Fire Pro on a conference call with IT, they're not very flexible. So Fire Pro has I would like to call a shelf life. Right now, we need to get it good enough that we can operate with it to give us enough time to go through a proper change management and transition to a different software. And we also need time to figure out what's going to work best for us. And we're very limited in that. So we've got to take, we needed as a group to buy some time with the current software we had to move us forward. And there's actually costs to doing certain things with the software. I found out today, for example, for us to work at home and use it and go through the system and get to the actual physical hardware where it's stored. There's a license fee that has to be paid for each user and stuff like that I didn't understand until somebody, and I spent the last 2 days dealing with this issue, trying to get it done. And DC Freer has done a lot of research too, and the different opportunities and so forth, the different programs. So him and I have been talking fairly heavily about where we want to go with it, but we need time to get us there. So we got to make the current system work, and that's what we're looking at.
fair enough, because we've been, Mr. Freer knows we've been dealing with this now over the last couple of years on this Fire Pro, whether it's in, it's out, what the county wanted, what the county doesn't want. So I guess you're just gonna have to take some more time and probably won't happen too soon.
Well, so for me, that's about the best explanation I've ever heard. Most in-depth conversation, so which is nice. And I know most softwares do work like that, licensing for users, especially when they're cloud-based. But we did apply for a grant to upgrade the software at one point, I guess. I don't know if it ever came of that. I guess maybe we didn't get it or.
I'm unaware of it.
No, this was before you came, but it was this year. Because we were talking about it last year's budget, hoping to get it to be able to update the software this year.
Right now, my concern is that can we get through 2024 with what we have?
Yeah.
So that when we hit 2025, if we've got to look at a capital expense to bring in new software, right, initially, because you initially have to pay a fee and then you usually have to pay an operating fee after that, then we'll look at that then, but we don't know what that is. Right, so it's an unrealistic expectation to sit there and say, okay, we're gonna put this much into it. So once we know what we've got, then we're in a better position to come back to you folks for the 2025 budget and give a realistic estimate.
Hopefully there's some grants.
Yeah, I trying to think about that grant, Gary, do you?
Question, if I may.
Sure.
Going down to the third section under general maintenance, I see a line that says water line, generator and plumbing. I believe in the Wyoming station, we're gonna move the washer and dryer upstairs. So I would presume that's covered under that. Would the rest be the work that has to be done at the Comanche station, chief?
Yeah, there's that, and I've also incorporated some of that into a further line item in capital. Where we've got to purchase a few items there as well, so, and there'll be some installation costs in there. And I'll get into that once we get to that line, and if you
Okay.
will.
Yes,
Sorry, your worship, I didn't,
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure. I thought that's what it was gonna be.
it's, we do have some opportunities to improve it at Canlackey.
No, that's fine.
Just a little bit, I just want to back you up a little bit on this Fire Pro. Like, all this software, and it's not just Fire Pro, but whatever software. If you're going to use it, then so be it. It's worth it. But you know, when you look at some of this Fire Pro stuff here, and in my experience here. Is like, you know, where you want people to enter, they're coming and all this kind of stuff, and. If it's being used, by all means, but you know, if you buy a big program, nobody can use it. They don't have the time. So we gotta make sure whatever one we get. The Fire Pro right off the bat, I heard complaints almost immediately after we got it.
Wrong app.
Pardon?
You're thinking of who's responding.
Yeah, no, I know that one too, but I'm just using that one as a software.
Yeah, but Fire Pro is materials management, time management, and everything else. And none of our guys really use it, that Chris and myself and the chief. Right now, in the last 2 years, I've been doing all the data input into Fire Pro.
So is it only for the chiefs to use, or your captains, are they supposed to enter into it? I have no idea.
We're looking at that and everything else, it hasn't come to fruition yet to get these guys motivated, but. But
If I may, Chair. Mr. Chair.
That's the point I'm trying to make is like,
If I may, Mr. Chair, so this is something we've had conversations about too, right? What are the functioning, and I don't want to get too far into this because we're not there yet, but what are the functioning parts of an application or a software system that we're gonna need? Right? I come from a prevention and background as well as a suppression background, so my outlook on a piece of software isn't necessarily gonna be the same as DC Freers or maybe DC Jordans, right? Because they're looking at it from a different end. They're looking at it from inventory, tracking, stuff like that, right? What we need is a piece of software that's going to incorporate all of that and including to the new technologies that we're fortunate enough to actually have on our vehicles, things like iPads and stuff like that. So this is why I wanted to buy that year and a bit with Fire Pro to give us the time to find out what's really going to work for us and be functioning so that the firefighters feel comfortable using it. As you well know, we're a young department. And we are, you know, very much dealing with a lot of folks from a digital generation. So if we can make it easier with things like apps on their phones or iPads in the trucks, we'll have a lot more buy-in for the folks to apply the software.
and that's the point I'm trying to get at. If we're gonna buy something,
but the complaints have been the who's responding app.
yeah, that's been a complete, well, I get that
Yeah.
part of it, yeah. When your pager goes off, you're heading to the fire.
Yeah.
You're not gonna sit down and,
No,
it's like my cell phone, you can't get reception.
Yeah, same thing.
Okay. Won't hold you up on that one, but it is an important point to make sure what we're buying is gonna be used. Any other questions on that page? Kristen, you got, no? Okay, moving on. Page number 8. Communication system here. Okay, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For me, on line section 3 with the Wallaceburg Fire Dispatch for the county, that's CAC, I believe. So are we not switching over? Is this to finish up what we need with CAC?
No, we just don't have a line item for that, if you will, through, sorry, your worship, through the chair. We don't have a line item for actually using. But there's nothing been put in there right now for Sarnia Dispatch, so
Okay,
I inserted the costs that we are gonna be incorporated with Sarnia Dispatch in there, which is approximately $4 per the populace of the municipality, which works out to about $33,000.
So this is quite a jump then.
Yes, through the chair, yeah, it is quite a jump, but I will say this, I feel, and I would say that the DCs will probably agree with me. We're getting much more bang for our buck. We're getting an organization that has the ability and the knowledge and trained membership within their dispatch centers to actually do things that are a bit more applicable. Since I've been here, and I've only been here a few weeks, CAC is doing the best they can, but they leave a lot to be desired. And they're hampered by many different restrictions. The dispatch in Sarnia, we're dealing with unionized, well-salaried employees that are professionals and trained in what they do. And they also dispatch Sarnia Fire, so this is nothing new for them. They dispatch a couple other fire departments in the area as well. So yes, it's more cost, but I think we're gonna see much better results.
Yeah, we did hear a lot of that when we approved switching.
No, my comment on that would be, this is a big ticket item on here, obviously. I think we were basically told it's not gonna be that big of a cost increase if you offset what we're already paying. Right, so if you deduct what we're already paying from what you've got on here, it doesn't look near as bad, correct?
No,
Yeah.
it's literally, if you look, Mr. Chair, it's about double the cost and.
Yeah.
And that was what we were told, right? When I first came on and when I looked at the agreement, and I had spoken to my colleagues. They said it was about double the cost and that's where we're sitting.
Any other questions on that page? No question, no. Anybody else? Carry on, page 9. Maintenance. Anything on there that needs to be adjusted or increased or whatever?
PM's redundant.
Question.
So under breathing apparatus, bench flow testing it's. I don't,
If I may, I think I know where you're going with this. I'm very, and I'm not saying it hasn't been done right in the past, but I'm very much by the book when it comes to requirements of meeting, fit testing and all that stuff. So I looked at this and I said, what's my worst case scenario? What's gonna cost me in the past? And what it's gonna realistically cost me to make sure we're doing everything 100% the way we should be. And that's where I come up with those numbers. So they may not be truly reflective of what you see in the past. I can't speak to that. I can speak to what I know the requirements that we have to do. And DC Freer and I again have these conversations as well as DC Jordan, where we have to make sure we're doing everything by the letter of regulation. So there's going to be some costs shifted around in that. Things like ladder testing, things like SCBA testing, fit testing. Fit testing is when we check our mass. There's actually a requirement. We normally would do that annually or semi-annually. There's a requirement, sorry, biannually. What is it? Anyway, every second year. And so we also have new members coming in and stuff like that. So I had to put some numbers in there that would allow some fluctuation. We also have members that I'm going to specifically request they do a fit test because of their the way they wear their facial hair, if you will. Because I have the right as the fire chief representing the employer to ensure that their masks fit properly, right? So that's why you may see those fluctuations there.
and that was exactly what I wrote. Is this not done regularly? So you read my mind. And it is biannual.
Yeah.
Anything else? Yeah.
So I'm gonna assume that would be the same for the hydrostatic testing. Kind of the same. Excuse me.
Gary, you got anything while we're reading? No.
No, I'm fine, Mr. Chair. It's pretty self-explanatory to me.
Down there, any comments on that page?
Sure, I can just explain with the hydro testing or every year our air packs are flow tested, every air pack we own. Every carbon fiber bottle for those air packs that stores the air is hydro tested every 5 years. So we are coming due with the first purchase from 2019 was the first major purchase we had to get into 4,500 PSI bottles. Those are now coming due for a hydrostatic test coming up in the first thing in the new year. So we're kind of preparing for, we're gonna run through this the next probably 3 to 4 years with a bunch of bottles that will need to be hydro tested.
So ultimately too, this will go back to what we spoke about during the last meeting when I talked about life cycle management, stuff like that. We're going to, over the next little while, we'll generate a plan where one water bottle might get done a year early. So that we can get it into a spot where we're basically hydrostatic testing over the next 5 to 6 years. So our H tests are set up so that we're basically sending the same amount of bottles every year. That way, when we have to life cycle them out at the end, we're not stuck with life cycling out a whole bunch of bottles all at the same time.
Which would bring me down to fire extinguishers. I see there was a very large capital purchase there. In 2021.
Fire extinguishers.
Hazmat supplies, gas tester. Is that what you're? Or under fire extinguishers?
What line are you looking at? I've got fire extinguisher maintenance, hazmat supplies and gas testers.
Hazmat supplies, and if you look,
Gas testers, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to, right now, that's the actual cost of certain things that have happened, but we're gonna be cutting back, where I'm adjusting it there a bit is we're gonna purchase a couple more monitors. And with that will come additional maintenance. So right now, we're only carrying, air monitors on the rescue truck, which means that things like CO calls, we have to roll 2 trucks every time, right? Whereas if we get additional units installed on the pumper, we can reduce the amount of apparatus we initially have to roll, right? So things like that is where you're seeing those numbers fluctuate.
Any other questions on that page? Okay, I don't have any. Moving on, page 10. Uniform expenses, always a big one. We don't have much of a choice there. We've got new people coming on board.
Again, Mr. Chair, it's never 100% what you're gonna spend year to year with the uniform budget. You know, I would rather our firefighters look professional and are neat and properly outfitted, especially if we're gonna have them out in public.
There has been some complaints in the past, chief, about excess equipment.
Oh, I agree.
Talking light equipment. I'm not talking bunker here. I'm talking.
No,
I'm sure you've heard it.
And as we go forward, we have, remember, and again, I can only speak to what I've dealt with since I got here, but we have members right now that don't have station uniforms. Right, so we want to get those members station uniforms. We have members that don't have jackets. Well, it's cold weather. We're still the employer. We're required to give them something warm to wear to work, right? So there is going to be some costs. Hopefully, we can get some of those panned out with the leftover budget we have still this year. And with them, we're going to be looking at hiring an additional 5 personnel. Those folks will have to be outfitted. And to give you an idea, a pair of pants is about $100 and a shirt's about $40, $50. Then we have to put all the accoutrements on them. And then a good all-weather jacket is almost over $300. And then, of course, boots, right? Like station boots and things like that. So those numbers add up very quickly, even with just 5 people.
So if a firefighter comes on board and then quits a year later, it's like. You take all that stuff with them. I understand you're not gonna take your pants off, but. But like winter
Bring it all
coats,
back.
winter jackets, that all go with them.
And for the most part, what I've understood is we've been able to retrieve some of that,
Okay.
right? But some of it is next to skin, and we're not gonna reissue a next to skin item.
Suggesting that for 1 minute. Just a question, I'm talking about the heavier. Gear. Okay, moving on, page 11. We got the department vehicles. Any questions on this page?
Well, I suspect I'm gonna get probably the same answers. Under pumper number 3. No,
No.
And some of the annual inspections have been done already this year. They're just not in the system yet. That might be where you're seeing a variance there.
excuse me.
Obviously, them being commercial vehicles, they do have to be inspected annually. And there's a significant cost to that, so.
I'm
There's a
sorry.
flow tester in there that was done October 5th. This is only September 30th, so.
So rescue 4 is going to be done then?
Rescue 4 was done. I've signed the bill. It just hasn't been put into the system yet.
I think most of these were paid, they were just paid after the actuals were put on here.
Okay, any other questions on that page? Okay, moving on to page 11, page 12. Wyoming, okay, continuation of trucks. Maintenance. You're number 10 now, are you, chief? Are you at your vehicle number?
That's correct. The expense for the lettering hasn't been put in there yet.
No, fair enough. We already paid for that once, so you're gonna have to foot that bill. You just couldn't see it, that's all. Anyways, I've had at least 3 comments on that, so very impressed. People are, they see it. Simple as that, right? We know what the chief is. But when he's coming to a fire or whatever. Yep. And the antique fire truck there, we got a report from DC Freer on that, but getting a bid on doing the motor, working on that, so that may be hopefully 2024, we can get her up and running. And there was, well, nothing in here for budgeted, on the antique fire truck.
So the budget will,
That's just for maintenance and,
It's down farther.
yeah, it's just maintenance and,
because I believe it's part of a grant, is it not? Yeah.
yeah. Okay, any other questions on that page? Page 13 then. Office supplies and miscellaneous. Okay, here we go.
I think you need some pens and paper, maybe.
No, so you're gonna see an increase in some of the office supplies because we, at Camlaki, we're gonna have to redo some of the offices with some furniture and chairs and stuff like that. We've been able to do that, for Wyoming. Once we look after some things out at Camlaki, we'll be able to upgrade some of the office furniture out there. So, again, it goes back to health and safety. We have an obligation under the Health and Safety Act to ensure that our folks have ergonomically correct chairs and all that great stuff.
Okay, anything else, Kristen? Gary, anything else there?
I have nothing.
Okay, I'm just looking at the service recognition contributes.
So if I may,
5,000.
Mr. Chair, my understanding is that we're going to be splitting up there's gonna be a certain amount of money going to the all-encompassing party. And so that is to still incorporate those honors and awards that we would have to pay for the actual physical end of it as well.
At the annual Christmas party, we call it. So we'll be talking about or budgeting for the other thing we talked about as far as firefighter appreciation, I suppose that's the proper words. We haven't come to any conclusions on that, but
I believe that's still up in the air, sir.
yeah, we haven't. So, but are we going to budget accordingly? Because
Well, and that's a question I put forth to you, sir. I don't know what the intent is right now, and so.
Go ahead, Adam.
We mentioned it in passing to the mayor and we'll be bringing it back as part of the budget discussions. We've heard loud and clear from all of our staff and all of council that maybe we should be looking at not only bringing the fire halls together, but all of staff together. We all are town employees servicing different functions, and we, other than maybe getting together at a Christmas party, we don't really have a whole lot of other activities together. So what will likely be proposed as part of the budget, and we'll provide a little more details at that time in the staff report, is that we will hold a potentially, and again, this is just discussion, a large scale staff appreciation day, including the firefighters and their families and general staff and their families at a park or something on the weekend when not everyone has to take time off of work. And then we will hold the annual Christmas party together. So that $5,000 that you see in the firefighters budget would be used for directly for firefighter only appreciations, whether that's, you know, a meal after a call or not necessarily during the call, because I understand you do food at that time, or at night for each station to do a little barbecue together, things of that nature. So there'll be a larger scale all staff appreciation event in the spring. There'll be a larger all staff Christmas party and recognition awards evening in November, December, and then each group will get to do smaller scale things on top of that, more individualistic.
So this isn't for the actual certificates and awards?
Certificates and awards have traditionally up until the last few years were presented at Christmas and
No,
we're
I
looking
meant-
to do that again.
So I meant the cost of those. Having those certificates and plaques or whatever they get.
I think as we do longer
What's
service.
the
award-
cost of those?
Yeah,
The
that,
actual hardware.
are you talking about the physical?
Yes.
I forecasted that something like into that $5,000. If you look at the past of what we actually used, we've never actually over the last,
Mhm.
you know, other than 2022, which went way up. And I don't know what happened there. It seemed like an anomaly. But certainly, we're sitting at around, 5,000 seems like a reasonable number.
Okay.
Right? We'll have folks retiring and leaving us, of course. And we'll have to look at those costs as well, but overall, I think that's a healthy number.
Okay, I just want to touch a little bit more on this one because what I heard their CAO just say, I'm not sure that's what I've been approached about by the firefighters. I could be wrong, so you guys are the spokesman for those firefighters, but what I heard after the last issue with the staff here having an appreciation day, the firefighters wanted their own appreciation day with their own spouses. Especially with spouses, the better halves. Because of all the issues that surround the firefighter and all that now. I think what I just heard that you were looking at a bigger event that would include all staff. I'm not sure that would work. It's just me talking now, but
And I believe, if I may, Mr. Chair, I think the CAO also alluded to each department doing a smaller event. The folks, the teams have already been, they know that there's money left and that we're to get something together, get the wives together and all that great stuff. For this year.
5,000 for that in the past, and you recall Sawmill Creek, chief, we went there in DC Fair, we went there with the spouses, and that was strictly fire board and senior staff. That's what I'm talking about here, that I'm hearing from some firefighters that's. So that's still in possibility?
Yeah, well, if you look, I went back with the numbers and I said, what is it really going to cost us to pay for the awards? Right? And then what do we need kind of left over? And I do believe that 5,000 is a healthy number. If I'm wrong, obviously we'll have to cut it out from something else, but I do believe like right now, we haven't got anything in the works right yet for this year. But it's something that the DCs and I have been chatting about, so it's trying to get that into the works. Because realistically, I have no idea what that's going to cost.
Yeah, because you're looking at, if you only got 60 firefighters, whatever, say 50 firefighters plus their spouses, that's 100. And usually you're looking at probably at least $50 a plate. Wouldn't be much cheaper anymore. You'd be lucky to get it for $50 a plate.
So again,
It's 100.
I mean,
5,000.
we can spike that up if you wish.
I'm just thinking,
But I'm comfortable with that number.
okay,
I would say that. I'm not gonna speak for the DCs. If they're not comfortable with that number, by all means speak up, but.
That's good.
And I think because we have the two other big events planned for all staff as a whole. I think that kind of help balance things out, and that'll come in the general budget.
And there's been a discussion about not doing the same old same old. There's been a discussion about doing something different and new. So it's a moving target. We don't know how much it's gonna all cost. So if we put it in there, we work it out through next year, we find that we under budgeted, next year we make up for it. If we over budgeted, which I don't think we necessarily did in this situation, we'll know at that time. So nothing is written in stone. There's a lot of discussion to come yet. It probably won't even necessarily happen before budget, but we'll just need to make sure the money's there. And then council and this group can have a discussion on what they want to see to recognize their employees, both as a whole and as in individual sections.
well, I just want to make that point because we've been dealing with that and it caused quite a stir. And staff got appreciated here in the firefighters. So and I know we budgeted 5,000 and went to Sawmill Creek, and I think we pretty well. Say even at $50 a plate, 100 people, that's $5,000. Okay, anything else on that page? Okay, moving on, page 14. Anyway, by the way, Chief, thanks for trying to keep things in perspective and reduce, here we are sitting here trying to talk you into increasing that. That's not normal.
I just want to be realistic with the numbers, Mr. Chair.
We appreciate that. Yes, Kristen.
We'll talk about this page.
Sure.
Oh. Under fire hall expenditures. We've got quite a jump there.
Through the chair, if I may, and I was very convinced you were gonna ask that very question. So we're making some modifications to the carcinogen prevention program. Number one, with Cam Lackey, we're going to be putting gear racks in and removing the gear from the trucks. That's an expense of almost $15,000 by itself. We need to upgrade the showers in Cam Lackey. That's going to be a significant expense. We have to, now, some of this stuff we're going to do this year. We have some money put aside, so not all of it's gonna be getting done. We do need to purchase a new fridge and stove for Cam Lackey's kitchen. I actually had to disconnect the stove out there today, had it disconnected because it didn't meet the code requirements. Because it was a gas stove and didn't have a hood system. So we disconnected it because it's no longer safe. We have to get an electric one to replace it. There's a requirement for,
Set off for years.
but it still has to come out. If it's there and connected, then it can be used, and that code says it's gotta be disconnected, so that's what we do. As far as other aspects of it, both halls are gonna get a washer extractor. They run about $8,000 a piece. $6,000 for the extractor and $2,000 for the pump that feeds them the concentrate that washes the gear. Whereas that actually reduced some of our costs on the operating budget for the cleaning costs. If you'll notice, they actually went down for cleaning of bunker gear. We won't have to send it out as often. It'll still have to be sent out for annual inspections or repairs, but we'll be able to reduce our cleaning costs because we'll have that equipment. But it also, again, it's going back to the carcinogen prevention program. An ordinary washer dryer doesn't use the proper cleaning solutions or spin at a rate that it actually extracts contaminants from the gear. These machines they're like a commercial washing machine, like you'd see in a laundromat, stainless steel, except the centrifugal force is faster, like it moves faster. And it actually is bolted to the floor, and they require 220 just to be connected. So they're a significant piece of equipment, and that's one of the reasons that number is so high. There is a little bit of bounce room in there, and the reason I did that is we have air quality tests coming up at Cam Lackey. On Friday, we're starting that process. We don't know what the results of that are gonna be. Right, so it may end up being that we need to give the place a good scrub. It may end up being that we have to look at our air exchange in the building because it's not open all the time. So hopefully we get some sort of indication of that, and that could, of course, change that direction as well.
From purchasing these items to focusing on that.
Well, we're really not gonna get away without purchasing those items at some point. As I stated to you in the last meeting, there's an expense with the carcinogen prevention program. There's no way around it. I mean, and we're responsible as the employer to show that we've done everything we can to reduce exposure because of preventive legislation. So certain items we're going to have to deal with. And that's some of the reason I pulled some money out of other areas as well. But as you can tell, it's just the cost of us maybe modernizing that hall. For whatever reason, it hasn't been modernized the way it should, and we have to catch it up. And it's just the way it is. It's gonna be a cost of that. I wish that there was a better way to do it, but right now, that's the hand we've been dealt.
This is the hall that doesn't have a female shower.
It has no female shower, that's correct. And so one of the issues I've been out dealing with contractors, so for example, at a Cam Lackey, the The washrooms themselves are the perfect size for, they meet the Ontario Accessibilities Act requirements. But then if we introduce a shower, we don't have the space anymore. So we literally have to knock out part of a wall to put a shower in the female washroom. The male washroom, we're actually gonna have to go to the point where we can turn the first shower that's in there, put 2 in, but then we have to move the door over to meet the accessibility requirements. So there is some jostling, if you will, of how we're going to do it. But it is possible, the space is there. It's just trying to get everything in, and there's gonna be cost to that.
So that's something down the road you're talking about.
Well, we're gonna try and get it done sooner than later, depending on what's left with this year and then where we're at next year. Yeah, at the end of the day, if we were to get a major incident tomorrow, we're not prepared at that hall to properly decontaminate the individual firefighters.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Okay,
Bunker something, bunker suits.
bunker suits, yeah.
So I guess that.
So, yeah, they're ongoing, if I will, Mr. Chair. Again, this is gonna be one of those items that we're gonna start circulating gear out. So as it'll fluctuate, some gear might be retired a little bit early, or however we decide to do that, so that we keep that cost steady throughout the year. Bunker gear is expensive. So one set of bunker gear is $3,800. And it only has a 10-year lifespan. And if anything significant happens to it, such as it fails a flow test, it's out of service. If we get a significant event where it's significantly contaminated, it's out of service. So the goal is to have enough that if we have a significant event, that we can decontaminate our firefighters while we're in the process of decontaminating our PPE. They have enough spare gear that they can still be put back into the throes of battle, if you will.
Okay, anything else, Kristen?
No, sir.
Okay, Gary, you got anything there? Anybody else got anything on that page? Yeah. Reasonable. Not much, most of that's mandatory anyway. Okay, we'll move on over to page 15 then. Any questions on that page by anybody?
What's our title?
Your title is new equipment, the capital, where we're here, yeah. Are all expenditures,
Cutter foam unit should be the first thing on your list.
better phone, top page,
Thank you.
top of the page.
So that hose.
Absolutely. I kind of figured you'd ask that through the chair. No, and it is a significant increase. So we were coming to realize that we don't necessarily have the proper amount of spare hose for each pumper. And because it's canvas hose, the folks have chosen to use that. We have to have time for that hose to be washed and dried. So we need to have a fresh load to put on in the interim. So right now, as it sits, we don't have enough spare hose to do that. So we're gonna have to purchase more hose to do that. And hose varies in cost. You can buy cheap stuff for $400 a length, or you can buy quality stuff that will last, and it's significantly more expensive. So we've got to buy a few lengths this year to get us into that role, and then we'll probably buy a few more lengths next year to continue that process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that page? Anybody else have any questions? No, nothing down there. Okay, let's move over to page 16 then. Capital vehicle expenditures. That's where the old pumper is there, 13,400.
Yes.
Yep, others just a quote, that's good. Go ahead, Counselor Christian.
Okay, so on here. We have the 13,400. for that. On this other page. We have 700. Which is, I don't know what,
One was the grant, you know.
yes, but that grant. is For.
Yes.
So it's like we've increased it sometime. I think if we were doing, yeah, when they matched it, the total was 13,400. 13,400, about 6,700.
No, right. Not in my opinion, it's 13,400 total.
Right, so I'm just saying there's a duplicate.
Are you looking on page 18 for the
I
second?
don't know what I'm,
18 is revenues, not expenditures. So,
it's under grants,
yeah, that'd be. a
So-
revenue then.
Here, yeah, 'cause I-
okay, so it will take us off.
That's,
Yeah.
that's a revenue offsetting the cost.
Gotcha.
Okay, any,
I can do, if I may.
yeah, sure, go ahead.
I do- So we do have a small expense there for 3, which didn't come off of that total.
Oh, the 403. Well,
But-
I think because these numbers are not only reflected till September the 30th, right? So eventually they'll,
That's the first bill, the 403 is the first bill from Broadway.
there's another one in there.
Not yet, I don't think.
For the-
The engine.
They're working on
Oh, okay,
So
their labor, so.
if I may, Mr. Chair, that grant money has to be used by July. So we have to carry it over because it's only good for 18 months, so. That's why we carried over that total. Yes, there's probably gonna be, that total will go down as bills come in. But we're like, as DC Fair alluded to last meeting, we're still in the touchy-feely phase of knowing how much it's really gonna cost.
Yeah, no problem. I was just saying the expense hasn't been subtracted. That's all. Give you more clear. Anyway.
Yeah. Certainly we'll use the grant money first. Right? Yeah, and I mean,
That is
this is,
advisable, Mr. Chair.
well, yeah, exactly. Well, that old truck, myself just looking at it, I'm certainly an old car guy and stuff, but it's gonna need hoses and upgrading and stuff, so. That money will get used up pretty quick when you start replacing that.
I'm sure it will, Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Counselor Rodriguez is correct though. Because we're not carrying any of this money over, so it technically would be new. That being said, that's gonna go into your equipment reserves anyways, which will lessen the blow into future. So although you're not necessarily using it this year, you are saving it for the future. And you're not increasing your budget significantly overall to so.
Now, there is a line on that sheet I'd like everybody to look at quickly. It's called MTO callouts to truck reserve. So something we haven't been doing last year that we gotta get better at is billing the MTO for services when we actually are on areas where we're required, where we can bill the MTO. For example, the 402. My intention is to bill the MTO at any time I have the ability to do so. Right? So if we get a call for service there, that's a significant amount of money. Right now, you're looking at what potentially $1,500 a call every time we go out there. Plus, depending on how long we're out there. So those type of things we're definitely, we will get 402 calls next year, I guarantee it. And that will, of course, increase that number as well. So that'll be money coming in that'll end up in reserve.
I can help explain that. So in the past, when there was revenue from the MTO, so it'll show on the income side, because you're looking at expense.
I know, that's
okay?
why I was.
But
having
we
a-
always move it to the expense side and put it in their truck reserve. So
Oh,
they have money coming to help
Okay.
buy trucks.
thank you.
I knew you were thinking.
I was like, what is he talking about? This is
All right,
expense.
I let them finish, but that's what we
Okay.
do. But that money is you usually transfer it over and put it in the truck reserve.
Gotcha, okay. So,
It's money that we're leaving on the table right now because.
no, that's, I understand. She knew what I was. I do accounting and stuff, so I was trying to figure out why it was in the expense. My other question on that was, my understanding is we haven't even had any of those calls. Do we How, like, what on average, how many calls do we actually do?
402, I come from my old department, we do hundreds of them on 401, but I can't speak to that. DCs would be a better have to give it.
All year.
At least one a month,
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
sometimes multiple times a day,
that's nice.
you know, the weather.
Yeah, and coming from a department where I was as a firefighter, a 400 series highway, I guarantee you we're gonna get calls, 100%. And I guarantee you that, well, the winter time, we might get multiple calls a day. Right? That's just the way it works. And that particular highway, from what I've gathered from talking to other chiefs in the area, it can be particularly dangerous when the wind's blowing. So I would imagine we'll be out there.
Or a stretch of highway.
go ahead, Gary.
Well, especially with the speed limit in that 402 now is 110. Unfortunately, some people don't realize they have to slow down in the wintertime and still think they can do that, so.
But that's mostly tourists.
So there could be some locals.
Well, my question on that topic is, if we're doing at least one a month, have we been applying?
I had to know.
We hadn't, but that's what we did.
That's why I wanted to point that out to the board during the session. That we will be making sure that we are maximizing those billing opportunities. Now, I'm not gonna go out and cause accidents myself, Mr. Chair. That's what you're asking next, so.
No, but I guess the point I'm getting at, this isn't the first time this topics came up. You know, there are times we've collected thousands. I'm talking thousand, I'm talking over 10,000, maybe closer to 20,000. From that, and from that 402 highway. So we've had the topic. I know there's been complications with the M2, 402 with the MTO. You only have 90 days.
That's correct, sir.
Which I think is ridiculous. The way the systems work, and maybe that's something that can be pushed to the MTO for comment if you ever get the opportunity, but. Like, we kind of need to know, like, if I'm talking about the fire board here, like how many calls are taking place, because. Here we have another year gone by and we basically got no dollars from the 402. And that bothers me a bit as chairman of this committee, because this topic has been on the floor over and over and over. And I thought we had it resolved, because the fellow from Warwick was kind of working with us to get that paperwork resolved, but here we are, with no money again.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I can't speak to that. I can only speak to what we're gonna do when we move forward. I've been given very clear instructions by the CAO. We will be billing.
Sure. I don't think we can-
So if I can get off topic on that when it comes to revenue. Are we going to in the future be discussing the marquee?
The fire marquee, absolutely, we'll probably have that conversation. But traditionally, the fire marquee, what they do is they take a portion of it. So when we sign up for them, there's no additional cost. What it is they take a portion of it. So if we bill the insurance, they can get $3,000 from the insurance company. They keep, I think, a third of it, which is about $1,000, right? So yeah, we're gonna be involved in that program. I actually know the gentleman that runs it fairly well, so I'm gonna be dropping a line to him. It's on my list.
Good, I'm glad to hear, because that's more revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else on page 60? Christian, you know, anything else?
No.
Gary? No. Yeah, okay. Moving over to page 17 there, summary page of expenses that we've just gone through. And that totals up to $984,540.
And we didn't even cut a penny. Epic failure.
No, I think that the chief has done an excellent. job
I know.
working With us and getting
I know.
to 4.5, it's a reasonable figure.
You're good.
I'd like to congratulate the chief, and in a matter of 3.5 weeks, being able to put anybody together this list.
Oh, no, this is no slight at you. It's a failure on our part.
Well, in the future, through the chair there, I'm hoping I can continue that failure next year.
You can just throw something in there, hoping we'll take it out.
So there's your budget of $984,000 expenses. Moving over to page 18. Your revenue page is there, grants. And moving over to the final page. Page 19, that kind of summarizes it all up there. You see your total of revenue, your expenses, and you can see your surplus, 0. Norma, would you like to just comment on the final outcome and what you see here?
So Eric and I have had discussions about this and we worked together at the end and currently it's sitting at a 4.5% increase. We don't know the CPI yet. Usually we go with October or November's CPI, and so I don't know what that's gonna be. But I think it's pretty good first stab.
4.5%.
I was striving for 4, but I just couldn't do it.
I think we started at that around that last year and got them down to 2.
Yes.
I don't know. I go back to council.
So,
Are you can?
Yes.
Whenever you'd like me there, Counselor.
so in conclusion, here's what you've been presented. 4.5%. So my recommendation is that if you have anything to offer to reduce this, what you'd like to cut anywhere in this budget, and I'm talking about to everybody in the room, speak up and we'll start that discussion right now. Any place you want to cut. What's inflation running right now, Norma?
I don't know, I was just gonna Google that.
It's probably running.
If the committee
Close.
wants something, they can put in there, so it's as amended. Mr. Rodriguez pointed out a very good fact that we did add the $1,500 from truck this year. It's already been budgeted in. So I know when Norma and I on other budgets will use a work in progress reserve. So that extra, whatever's left over, say it's maybe $4,000 from the allocation of the taxes this year. Or the budget, doesn't matter, it's still money coming in and out. You could switch that from this year's money to next year's as a work in progress reserve. And that could cut $4,000 out of your total, because that would be $4,000 additional dollars in revenue, give or take. We'd have to sit down with the chiefs to just to see how much we have spent already on the vintage fire truck to gauge that transfer amount. But that would provide a couple $1,000s less increase.
Well, I think it's proper accounting to do so, but I don't think I'll. I have to sit beside Counselor Blaze.
So like, do you want to?
Well, I think that's proper accounting. It should be done regardless.
So how much would that reduce the budget to?
0.4%.
Yeah.
Pardon me? 4%.
So it'd be closer to 4.
Beautiful.
That's the worst you could do.
So Norma, just going down the 2023 actual talks here about surplus, did we move $237,000 over to surplus in 2023?
No, that's
Two hundred thirty-seven, no, plus 23 is not done yet.
No, I know, I appreciate it's not done, but you got a number in the bottom. Surplus,
At the end of September, you had a surplus.
Yeah.
But once he spends all his others, that will probably be there.
so you think that whole reserve will all be used up, that 237,000?
Well, if you noticed the year before, we had a deficit, so.
Yeah.
I would strongly encourage the committee to avoid using surpluses to finance your next year.
Yeah.
The municipality did that as a whole before we got here, and it can put you in a big hole. Because if one year you have a deficit and suddenly you're relying on that surplus as revenue the next year and it's not there, you get a 10% tax increase instead of a 2% tax increase. So let that go to your reserves for future use. Don't jump it into your following year. But that's the committee's decision as a whole, but it's a pitfall that you can get into if you're not careful.
Well, I had asked for clarification on that.
I mean, through the
Yeah,
chair, that is the money that's left. There's a lot of stuff that we're working on right now and some changes that we're making. So that, once we have the true numbers of there, we'll be able to figure out what those are gonna mean to us. The other part of that is there's a number of bills that we haven't put in there. For example, I've probably signed at least a half dozen inspections And that's probably close to $10,000 by itself. For vehicles, that wasn't tabulated into there, so there's quite a few bills that haven't been put into that yet, because they came in after the 30th. Right, and that's the fall, right? Those are traditionally the time when we do certain checks and certain inspections, so. Looking back at what I've seen, and that's why probably that surplus seems very high, but it's not accurate.
Okay, but this is why I expressed my calculations at the last. It was last meeting here. You'll remember, Laura, it's frustrating putting together a budget when you still have 4 months potentially, or 3 months worth of bills. And I get it. You don't want to do the budget at the end of the year. That makes total sense. But having an accounts payable, some sort of estimate of what's still left, kind of, or what's still owing on accounts, kind of helps gives you a better picture, right?
I wouldn't disagree with you, ma'am, but that's where we're at right now.
Now, your response to that, Norma, at the last meeting was you moved everything to cloud or something, but you were still working out the.
We've been having a lot of issues with the programs, but
So it's still cloudy.
it's still cloudy.
Never mind.
But, yeah, so we can update October here soon.
I have a few more receipts to bring up again. And in the treasurer's defense, when we were sitting going over the budget, her poor computer probably froze 4 times. So.
I almost picked it up and threw it in.
Here, yeah.
They just didn't update, so we're having nothing but headaches.
So here comes the $6 million
The
question.
CPI right now, it says 6.7%. But that'll change hopefully. Oh, I don't know.
So do we want this budget down to 4%? Or do we,
I don't see where we're going to put this budget
well,
down.
you talked about the accounting and what Adam talked about would bring it
That's
down.
not gonna bring it down to 4%. That's gonna bring it down to
4%.
4.4%. So, I mean, that should be done regardless, but, I don't see anyone.
Anybody else got any suggestions here?
You, us to,
I do know last year when you were speaking with all the upgrades, the bigger expense on the building expenses. That we talked about, you were talking about all these air exchanger things, water, air shower.
As I stated to you through the chair, as I stated to you, the reality is that we're still trying to figure out what it comes to with the air quality and stuff.
No. I know last year we talked about a lot of this stuff as well. And we actually nixed a lot of the budget to try and save and keep the number as low as possible. So, I mean, we've already put it off 1 year. I don't think it makes any sense to do that again. I mean, these things need to be done. So that's what I was gonna say too.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is that we'll move forward with a proposal for the council for a proposed budget increase of 4.5%. I don't hear any recommendations amending it. So I'm not gonna write that on here.
I think there was a recommendation at a minimum to move some of the unspent monies from the vintage fire truck from this year in the capital to next year's capital, which would reduce slightly. So there is that amendment if the committee is still agreeable to it.
enough.
If the amount.
Yes.
Exactly.
So,
I think we still should just do it.
so whatever we don't spend, will be definitely to surplus. But you could put a little bit in and say you're gonna bring some back from reserve. To make it lower a little bit.
At the end, I'm gonna go with what the treasurer recommends. From what I'm gathering right now, we're with that. And this is my understanding is that particular truck. That grant money has to be used. It's still there, so we have to use it. If we move it into reserves and pull it out, I don't see a terrible issue there. Just as long as we get it used, it would be, we need to use it, right? That's the bottom line, so.
So as amended. Are you gonna move that? Are you gonna, is that what you're, pardon me?
It's what we do in public works is when we have unspent amounts in capital, that project's a multi-year project. It goes into the reserves and then comes back out in the following year, which reduces the amount of tax income.
I think that Eric has it on both the same in both years. So
Okay.
it's moving and coming back. So I don't think there's gonna be much difference.
Oh,
I didn't catch it. I apologize.
oh, I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's already got it.
You didn't even give us that.
So he's coming,
Sorry.
he's already got it coming back. The full, he's got the full amount that we're not spending and then coming back. So I don't think you're saving anything there.
I only saw the grant portion, so I missed that other portion, then never mind.
I don't think we can do this. Up there. You direct us to try and find a few dollars, then that's what we'll do. But that would be with the
Well,
chiefs.
My overall goal, long-term with the budget is to keep it stable. Right? There's going to be increases, there's gonna be things that we can't predict. Right? But one of the things that when you selected me to take over this position. I said was I will try my best to keep the budget stable. And if we do our life cycle management right, other than the things that you can't predict, something breaks that you can't, account for, something like that. Our budget should stay reasonably stable. Right? As we grow, if the department needs to grow as a community, then of course that budget will grow. But the expenses should be indignant of the growth, not graphic areas, like things have been done in the past where previous folks have bought a whole bulk of material, say helmets, for example, right, all at once, and they have a lifespan. So it's better to set it up to have so many full sets of PPE done every year and continue that way. That way our budgets stay stable. And that's my goal, is to try and keep that budget stable. There is things that will come up that we will have to throw into capital. I get that. But for the most part, I'm gonna try to do that.
Mhm. No, and this is not a department we want to nickel and dime by any sense of the word. And obviously things need to be caught up. And like I said, we put stuff off from being done. So I don't think we should be doing that here.
Okay, so it sounds to me like we move this to council, the proposed budget. No amendments, no moving little bits here and there. All in agreement on that? Okay, so I won't be writing any amended down here at all. Now, when this gets to council, of course, I get the opportunity to ask the same questions that we've just asked. Or remove or reduce it or whatever, so as long as we're all in agreement here, and it sounds like we are. Not speaking for everybody, if there's anybody not in agreement, moving it forward, okay, then here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna read this again. It was moved by Gary Atkinson, second by Kristen Rodriguez, that the Fire Exec Committee receives proposed 2024 Plympton-Wyoming Fire Emergency Service budget from Chief Eric Campbell, Director. I added that chief in there, by the way. It's just Eric Campbell, Director of Fire and
Very
Emergency
much.
Services, size fire chief, and provide preliminary approvals for the 2024 draft budget to be included in the 2024 budget proposal to council. All in favor? Yes, there's nobody else to be opposed, so carried. Thank you.
Manila.
Moved by Kristen Rodriguez, second by Gary Atkinson, that the Fire Exec Committee adjourns until November the 20th, 2023 meeting or all in favor? Carried.